Welcome, friends! I'm so happy to have you here at my little channel. If you're so inclined, please leave me a comment below and share a link to my channel with your friends so I can grow this community. For now, I'm happy to finish up this part 2 on the Willis clan. From the moment I found out about them, I needed to know what happened to this family and their incredibly talented children. I'll start out with the video of Toby's arrest, then show some clips from the Willis family show and blog. Many people say they got a creepy feeling about Toby from the moment they saw him on television. And then I'll conclude with reading the end of Jessica Willis's statement about her life as a survivor of childhood SA.
Good evening, everyone. We begin tonight with the arrest of a reality show father. The father of the Willis clan is in jail tonight.
News Channel 5's Jason Lamb has more on this shocking arrest. Jason.
That's right. Toby Willis was taken into custody in Greenville, Kentucky today. That is where the Willis clan was set to perform tonight. Now, Toby Willis is the father of the children who make up the Willis clan. While he isn't seen often with his 12 musical children, he is an active part of the family band, serving as their manager and often as their sound tech. The family also has a popular reality TV show. According to the TBI, Willis left Tennessee to avoid authorities. The TBI says an investigation started on August 29th. That's when agents obtained information Willis had a sexual encounter with an underage girl 12 years ago. Right now, he's being held in Kentucky, and he will soon be brought back to Cheatham County to face.
The mugshot is absolutely terrifying. I keep thinking about his tiny children having to deal with that face on a daily basis. But let's go ahead and take a look at what Toby tried to portray himself as on the family's show.
Big idea is to try to help my kids and give them land so they can build houses and still live and work together. And hopefully the surveyor can take the land and divide it up and accomplish, what we need. What I'm hoping to be able to do is eventually build the public house, or we call it the pub. A lot of people don't know that's where the word pub comes from, but the public house, where everybody would hang out, it's a bigger house. And then build the smaller houses. Maybe 3 right here is what I'm hoping for, and then 4 along there. And the idea is you have this small gated community where all the kids can live. In a sense, the grandkids can all hang out, cousins, whatever, hang out together. And then you have the public house where you'd have the studios and the workspace and the living space where school would go on and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I bet you were really interested in keeping your children and grandchildren and cousins and all those kids around on your property. It's so sad to think he was setting up an entire piece of land for his family to live on so that he would continually have access to young children. It's so unbelievable to me that a man like Toby Willis was able to con the TLC network into giving him and his family his own show when behind the scenes he was SAing several of his children. The good news of this story is that the children of the Willis clan are growing up safer and happier away from their father, and you can keep up with them on their various social media pages. For the most part, the clan has stopped touring. Many of the children have gotten married and have children of their own. Several are still making music, especially Jessica Willis, who recently released a new album. Here's a short look at what the older Willis clan members have been up to. Jet Willis, now Piat, has created an instructional Irish whistle course, and she does it online for people to join in with. It's really cool to see that they're continuing on with the musical traditions they learned in their childhood. Jeremiah Willis has become a husband and father to 2 beautiful children. Jet also got married and showed off her pregnancy online in April of 2021. The matriarch of the Willis clan, Brenda Willis, just really seems to be enjoying being a grandmother. It's unknown how her relationship stands with Toby Willis. It's not clear whether or not she's filed any divorce papers. And as we'll hear in the rest of Jessica's statement, Jessica is married, happy, and still making and releasing music. She recently released a new album. You can check that out and a lot more information about all of the children in the Willis clan by going to their Facebook page. Over the next few years, my daily life transformed dramatically as my family became more and more public. My father shaped us from child students to child performers, and at some vaguely indiscernible point, we became a touring dance troupe and then band. He always promoted his philosophy, showcasing the family as the living proof of the validity of his methods and beliefs. I remember at one point being a model member of this strange and highly performance-oriented group, complete with the belief on nearly every subject and constantly ready to make a range of demonstrations on cue. With time, I came to sense the increasing divide between where my life was heading and where I realized I wanted to go. Bigger platforms and higher octane schedules led to pressures that can stress even the healthiest of systems. Our family system was disturbingly sick. For a long time now, I had felt like I was going through life with a massive bomb strapped on my chest that I knew would one day detonate. In 2011, I wrote a song called Speak My Mind, wherein I wondered if I could ever get the courage to speak out and break free. Would other people understand me or love me or be there for me? I was desperate for help, but also felt that anyone who came close enough to help me would get hurt. Could I knowingly do that to someone? I was getting glimpses of different lifestyles, examples of other beliefs and other lives, but I knew I was not going to get from where I was to where I wanted to be without major changes. My husband, Sean, came into my life at the beginning of 2015. He was not the first person to teach me what love can be like, but he truly changed my life forever. Neither of us were ever alone in our journey. There is a special and beautiful thread of people who shaped us throughout our lives before we knew each other, and there is a community that was there with us through the hardest parts of our flight. There were many rules in my family for communication, friendships, and relationships, but it universally came down to my father's favor, and if that was lost, any person, family, or group would be cut off by whatever means necessary. My husband and I had that general favor for the first few months, and he was welcomed in to experience the full performance of the Willis clan in up-close action. Sean came over to spend time with the family countless times and visited our home church meetings. He bought me flowers on Valentine's Day, and in March we went on a date with chaperones. However, it wasn't long before a growing connection became a threat to my father's control, and the favor evaporated. April's schedule brought a tour band, and I hit the road with my family on our tour bus. It was the day before my 23rd birthday, and we were in Minnesota performing and filming our TV show. I came into my hotel room that night to find my mother and some of my sisters sitting on the bed crying with that look on their face I had seen so many times before. The coldest, blackest pit opened up in my stomach because no words needed to be said for me to know something had happened. How was I here again? I could not stay in denial about my past because it obviously wasn't staying in the past, even though at times I tried so hard to forgive and forget. Things were not over. They had never been. SA was still happening, and I knew it. Deep in my gut, life seemed thin and fragile and about to shatter in that moment. The delicate balance of ignorance and fear and hope was about to break wide open. I was the adult now. Something had to change. I said things to my father that night. I told him I would not ignore it this time. I told him I would leave as soon as I could find out how to do so. Other family members echoed similar declarations. Again, this is another situation that my mom, my siblings, and I have been able to talk about more recently and peel back the layers of confusion and conflict to understand that we all had different viewpoints and interpretations of events during that night. From that day on, our public life continued without missing a beat. If anything, it intensified. All threats or ultimatums made to my father were brushed aside, and the runaway train that was the Willis clan gained speed. I kept up the outward show, but within the family, things began to fall apart for me. I continued my relationship with Sean without my parents' consent, and it even went completely underground. As things got weirder, he struggled to make sense of the situation. He shared books and resources with me, not realizing just how valuable I found the information at the time. I came to view what my father had done with increasing horror. I was less and less cooperative with him and had to face the mounting consequences. The middle of August arrived and found our family neck deep in filming a live concert DVD. Things were strained, and rehearsals included huge blow-ups and power struggles between my father and I, or sometimes another sibling. That weekend, Sean sent me a message saying he thought he had figured out what happened in my past. I confirmed. I remember him asking me if I was safe. I looked around, and though I didn't voice it, I realized I was not. No one had ever told their truth. No one had ever truly stood up to my father. I personally had never shared the details of what he had done to me. Doing so would put me in danger, but it had to be done. I sat down and wrote a 14-page document about the worst abuse. It poured out of me in terrible detail, and it was the first time I felt the power of its story. I showed the letter to my mother, who was rightly outraged. My father refused to read it and accused me of lying. I had taken my first step towards speaking out, but I had shared my story with another victim trapped in the same prison as me. My father lashed out at both of us with whatever threats necessary to maintain his control and began consistently threatening my mom with the lives of the entire family. I continue to look for a way out on my own, but it can seem impossible to jump off a runaway train. When we arrived home from tour that autumn, I was somehow able to go out with Sean one more time. When I arrived home that night, my family had been made aware of my secret and inappropriate communication with him, and Sean was excommunicated. My father threatened his life. I was forced by my father to, quote-unquote, break up with him multiple times over the following months. All manner of technology or communication was taken away from me, and even secret letters were found out. It was imperative to keep me closed off from all help, as I was now fighting to get out. My life amounted to a type of house arrest. I sank into the first depression of my life and lost close to 15 pounds. We continued to perform, to film, and for the first time I saw the reality of my life. The abuse was in my mind every day. How could I have stayed this long? My father sought to stamp out my rebellion and became increasingly violent towards me in front of the family. I felt myself losing my grip on sanity. I was accused of being the only problem in the family, ruining everything. It was said that I was possessed by a demon. The way things were escalating, I began to fear for my life. In January, my father assaulted me on the tour bus in front of the entire family. I just have to stop here and say, I can't believe all of this was going on behind the scenes of the TLC show. They were still performing. They were still acting as a quote-unquote normal family. And apparently the mom was aware of what had happened to her daughters and wasn't able to pick up and leave. This is really interesting to me. It makes me think a lot about other families that I've talked about, and it makes me wonder what could be going on further behind the scenes that we don't really want to believe would be happening. Returning to Jessica's statement, she says, "He blamed my disobedience and defied everyone, though my mother and siblings tried to interfere. A police car pulled up behind us, and when the officer entered, I hid in my bunk to hide the blood and the forming bruises. Everyone put on their show faces. In that moment, I knew I was betraying myself. I was the one keeping me prisoner." Again, all of this is extremely abbreviated. I have focused on my own personal narrative and tried to distill events down to the most impactful points. I woke up one morning during the first week of April, not knowing it was the day I was finally going to leave. The TV show had just finished filming. We were in Tennessee at a new rental house, and we had a few weeks before our new gig. Halfway through the morning, my brother Jer and I had a disagreement, and he went to our father. Dad came down and confronted me. When I didn't apologize, he took off his belt and beat me like when I was younger. He said it was his God-given responsibility to punish me. It was in that moment that I knew the threats and violence stopped working. No matter how it happened, I would leave by tonight. The rest of the day was like a blur. I had tried to leave multiple times before and was always physically prevented, but something was different this time. I was almost in a coma, not saying much, one half of me completely paralyzed in fear and the other half slowly proceeding, almost calmly, holding each little inch of ground I gained. One after another, there were various threats of further violence and legal repercussions from my dad. My mother and siblings made religious and emotional appeals. Everyone was terrified of what would happen if I really left. But these things had lost their power over me. I was so far retreated into myself that I somehow found the trembling strength to keep insisting. I was allowed to use a phone call, to call a friend, and without being given an explanation, she told me I was welcome to come and stay for as long as I needed. I had no plan, but the immediate steps eventually took shape. 2 of my siblings offered to drive me. Sean had gotten me an emergency phone that I had been too afraid to use. Now I dug it out from between my mattress and box spring and sent a message saying I was coming out. In every moment of that car ride, I felt I was about to retch my guts out. I had never felt so physically sick with fear and grimacing determination. I woke up the next morning in a strange new world. My 24th birthday was only a few days away. It had taken way too long, and at times I thought I would die, but I had finally escaped. I had left everything but a few clothes and personal items. It was astounding to me that life continued on like nothing had happened. The earth continued to turn. One day at a time, I tried to begin again. I saw my family a few times after I left, and I felt such guilt towards leaving my mom and siblings, and also struggled with an overwhelming responsibility to the band that I'd left in such a lurch. I helped them with a few projects, and it was incredibly strange, and I felt like I didn't exist as soon as we were off stage or off camera. The contrast of being outside my family's bubble and then being back in the thick of it was overwhelming. Even though I had left, I felt immense pressure not to mess with what my family continued to portray to the public. I could not find the power to break that hold. I tried to block my family from my mind as I dove into the safety net that emerged around me. I knew now that I could not break said hold without keeping away from the whole system. Friends and eventually various support groups helped me in seeing a therapist with extensive trauma training. People who've never showed up for me in any way I'd experienced before. I learned about trauma, recovery, dysfunctional family systems, and finally found the vocabulary to accurately describe what had happened to me. At first, my mouth would not move no matter how hard I tried to speak, and my body would shake and shut down. But these words had power, and their exact meaning told the truth I had experienced. There is something profound in finally being able to speak for yourself, to tell your story and know you are right. It was as if I was speaking my story, and it began to make my truth accessible in the real world. Around 4 months after I left, another friend stepped forward to save the rest of my family. He reported my father for suspicion of SA, and the official investigation started. The case was given to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. When they contacted me, I went in and ended up speaking with them the whole rest of the day. I was able to give them a long and confident testimony, which was eventually used to create the arrest warrant. I was warned not to speak to my family at this time, and if they reached out, I should let the TBI do their job. There was great concern on how to keep everyone alive and safe while trying to apprehend my father. It was no exaggeration to fear a violent confrontation, standoff, kidnapping, or worse. It was a harrowing few weeks, but my father was finally arrested. I truly think that the extent of what happened will never be known. I know even with this partial account of my personal experience alone, it is complex. I also believe that no matter the method of telling, no one else will ever fully understand what it is like to live through something like that unless you too have been there in your own way. The investigation unearthed so many more things that my family as a whole was unaware of, and there are still sometimes no words to describe what happened in its fullest magnitude. Healing is a lifelong process. I remain personally dedicated to always leaning further into my recovery and pursuing my own education, so I will never be without the tools that would prevent me from being held prisoner in such a situation again. As my mom and siblings move forward with their lives, I am so grateful for the chance we have had to heal and continue to grow closer. Most recently, through the process of me preparing and sharing this account, my mom and siblings each have had their own powerful stories, and they are all beautiful survivors. I have felt such support from them in the telling of this story, and I look forward to supporting them in theirs. I have a beautiful life for which I am incredibly grateful. I married my amazing husband last year. He too has his own truly inspiring story throughout this crazy tale, and I'm so thankful that he constantly invited me towards a better life since the moment I met him. I have had so much help and support from so many other people and organizations. Most recently, I spent the beginning of February attending an amazing program at a place called On Site, which, as it turns out, was the place my husband was working when I first met him. I am not currently a part of the Willis Clan band, but I will always be part of the Willis family. There is much to learn for myself about the truth of healthy relationships, faith, family, home, success, fulfillment, and so much more. I appreciate the grace that is given by those closest to me. I assert my right to protect the privacy of my personal life while still feeling free to explore and passionately pursue my dreams and goals. I am excited by the possibilities of the future and the beauty of now. If you are someone whose honesty and vulnerability invited me further into true connection, you have helped save my life. I can still struggle with the wish that I could have stood up sooner, been stronger, saved myself and my family in the way that was desperately needed for so long. But I have learned that I did the best I could at the times when I felt like there was no other choice. I didn't know until I finally knew. I couldn't stand until I finally stood. There is no shame in finally being strong. I am a survivor. As both my 26th birthday and the anniversary of my leaving draws near, I find it amazing to reflect on the past 2 years. I have learned that even when I do find the courage to speak on my own, not everyone will understand or be there for me. But that's not why I am doing this. For me not to speak up and acknowledge what has happened would be like hiding in the bus all over again. It would be to hide my own painful past and pretend that I wasn't part of the act because I am afraid of what might happen or whether my story will be misunderstood. Writing and sharing this piece is an important step for me in owning my story, loving myself and others, and moving forward to live the life that I truly want to live. If you too are a survivor, you are not alone. What more is there to say? I've truly reached the end of this rabbit hole.